The morning Marcus Chen decided he was too important to notice anyone else was the same morning his life began to unravel in the most beautiful way possible. He walked through the glass doors of Meridian Capital on the 43rd floor of a midtown Manhattan tower like a man who had earned the right to occupy more space than anyone around him. And by every measurable standard, he had. 38 years old, a portfolio worth 9 figures, a corner office with a view that made people gasp when they first saw it. He wore his success the way some men wore cologne, you noticed it before you even saw him coming. The elevator ritual was always the same. Marcus would step in, press 43, and stare at his phone until the doors opened. He acknowledged no one, not the security guard who said good morning to him every single day for 3 years. Not the barista on the lobby level who remembered his order without being asked. And certainly not the quiet girl who cleaned the office floors every morning before the executives arrived. Her name was Sophia Reyes. She was 26, small in stature, with dark eyes that carried something ancient and patient in them. She wore her hair pulled back tight, pushed a cart with a squeaky left wheel, and spoke to almost no one, not because she was unfriendly, but because most people looked through her the way you look through a window rather than at it. She had been working the early morning shift at Meridian Capital for 2 years. In those 2 years, Marcus had never once looked at her directly. He had seen her, sure. The way you see a mailbox or a fire hydrant, registered, categorized as non-essential, forgotten. But Sophia noticed Marcus. She noticed everyone. It was both her gift and her quiet burden. She noticed that he always had a coffee ring on his left sleeve, which meant he drank while he walked and was always running slightly behind schedule. She noticed that on Mondays he looked heavier somehow, like the weekend had pressed something down on him rather than lifted it. She noticed that he kept a photograph tucked under the glass panel of his desk. She had seen it once while cleaning, a woman and a little boy, laughing at something off camera. She never knew who they were. She never asked. What Marcus didn't know, what no one in that building knew, was that Sophia Reyes went home every evening to a 5th-floor walk-up in the Bronx, cooked dinner for her younger sister and their grandmother, and spent her nights studying for her nursing board exam. She had been studying for 18 months. She had failed the exam once, cried for exactly 1 night, and registered to take it again. She sent half her paycheck home to her mother in Puebla, Mexico, every 2 weeks without fail. She had never told anyone this. It wasn't something she felt needed to be said. The morning everything changed started like any other. Marcus stepped off the elevator on 43, moved toward his office, and then stopped cold. He had left his laptop at home. For a man whose entire empire lived inside that machine, it was a catastrophe. He turned around, punched the elevator button, and when the doors opened, he stepped in without looking, and collided directly into Sophia's cart. A full bucket of soapy water caught the edge, tipped, and cascaded across the marble floor and directly down the front of Marcus's Italian suit. He stood there, soaked from chest to knee, and felt something rise up inside him that he was not proud of. The words formed fast. He turned to say them. But Sophia was already on her knees, pulling towels from her cart, pressing them to the floor, and then without thinking, she reached up and began blotting the front of his jacket with quick, practiced hands, the way someone does when they are more concerned about another person's dignity than they are about their own discomfort. She looked up at him then. That was the first time Marcus Chen truly saw Sophia Reyes. He had expected fear. He had expected the apology that service workers are trained to deliver like a reflex. He had expected her to shrink. Instead, she looked at him with those dark, patient eyes and said quietly, "I'm sorry. I should have seen you coming. Are you okay?" She asked if he was okay. Marcus stood there for a moment that lasted longer than moments usually last. Something moved in his chest. It wasn't guilt, not exactly, though that was part of it. It was something closer to recognition, the sudden awareness that he had been the one not seeing, for years, and this woman had just apologized for his blindness. He opened his mouth and, for the first time in longer than he could remember, he didn't say what power and habit told him to say. He said, "No, I'm sorry. I wasn't watching where I was going." Sophia blinked, nodded, went back to cleaning. Marcus changed his suit that day. He kept a spare at the office, a billionaire habit, but he couldn't change the feeling that had settled somewhere behind his ribs. He found himself, during a board meeting he should have been fully present for, thinking about the way she had said, "Are you okay?" like it was the only question that actually mattered in that particular moment. He started paying attention after that. He noticed she was always first in the building and last to leave her floor. He noticed the nursing textbook tucked behind her cart one morning, dog-eared to a chapter on cardiac emergencies. He noticed, on a Thursday in early November, that she looked like she had been crying, eyes rimmed red but expression composed and still, and that she went about her work with the same quiet precision she always did, the way people carry grief when they cannot afford to put it down. He didn't say anything. What would he say? He told himself it wasn't his place. 3 weeks later, the building hosted its annual holiday staff appreciation event, a catered affair in the lobby that was technically for everyone but that everyone understood was really for the people above the 20th floor. Marcus arrived, drink in hand, scanning the room for the right people to talk to. He saw Sophia near the edge of the room, coat on, about to leave. She had stopped to look at the lobby Christmas tree, a 12-foot Douglas fir decorated in gold and white, and there was an expression on her face so quietly full of something that Marcus stopped walking. He crossed the lobby. He didn't know why. "You're leaving already," he said. She turned, recognized him. A small, polite smile. "I have to get home. My grandmother." "Your grandmother," he repeated, because he didn't know what else to say. "She has good days and hard days," Sophia said simply. "Tonight I want to be there." There was nothing performative about it. No bid for sympathy. It was just the plain truth of her life, offered with the same steadiness she offered everything. Marcus thought about the photograph under his desk glass. The woman and the little boy. His ex-wife and his son, Daniel, who was now 9 years old and lived in Connecticut and called him every Sunday if Marcus remembered to answer. He said, "What's your name?" She told him. He told her his. They had worked in the same building for 2 years. "I saw your textbook," he said. "Nursing." She hesitated, then nodded. "Boards are in March. How's the studying going?" "Slow," she said. Then, more precisely, hard. He asked where she studied. She said the kitchen table, after her grandmother was asleep. He asked if she had a tutor, or a prep course. She looked at him the way people look when something costs money they do not have and they don't want to explain that. He understood without being told. Marcus Chen went home that night to his apartment on the Upper East Side, 3,000 square feet, usually silent, usually feeling like a museum of his own ambition, and he sat on his couch and thought for a long time. The next morning he was in the lobby at 6:45. Sophia arrived at 6:50, cart and all, and stopped when she saw him standing there. He handed her an envelope. "I called a nursing board prep company. The top one in the city. They do intensive 6-week courses. It's paid for, and it's yours if you want it." Sophia stared at the envelope. Then at him. "I don't understand. You asked me once if I was okay," Marcus said. "It was the first time in a long time anyone had asked me that and meant it. I've been thinking about how to answer." He paused. "I think this is part of my answer." She didn't cry, though her jaw tightened in the way people's jaws tighten when they are working hard not to. She took the envelope. He expected her to thank him effusively. She didn't do that either. She said, "I will pass this exam, Mr. Chen. Not thank you so much or I can't believe this." She said it like a fact she was delivering to the universe, measured and certain, and he believed her completely. Sophia Reyes passed her nursing boards in March. She called Marcus to tell him. She had asked a receptionist for his contact once, months before, to say thank you in writing, and he had written back, and they had become something neither of them had a clean word for. Two people who had, by accident in water and one quiet question, pulled each other slightly back toward the world. She went on to work in the cardiac unit at Lincoln Hospital. She moved her grandmother and her sister into a better apartment. She calls her mother in Puebla every Sunday now, the same day Marcus calls his son Daniel, and sometimes Marcus thinks about how a person can move through the world blind for years, surrounded by whole human beings they've chosen not to see, and how all it takes to change that is one moment where someone looks up and asks if you're okay. He still works on the 43rd floor. But he knows the name of the security guard now. He knows the barista's daughter just started college. He knows that paying attention is not a small thing. It is, in fact, the whole thing. The quiet girl in the lobby changed Marcus Chen's life, not by being extraordinary in the way the world rewards, but by being quietly, persistently, immovably decent, and by offering him, at the moment he least expected it and most needed it, the radical grace of being seen.